Jonathan Clemens was the Chief Medical Officer and employee of Weyland-Yutani in the prison Class C work correctional facility on Fury 161 in the year 2179. He had a somewhat colourful past and even more so death. But today I wanted to take the time to explore this man in today's character catalogue. Clemens was born in the year 2128 in the United Kingdom, and during his earlier life he was an excellent student and showed true promise in the field of medicine and medical science, and eventually attended medical school. He would make it through school and graduate in the top 5% of his class, a promising and evidently so young man to move into the medical workforce. However, despite his successes, it seemed to not prove him invulnerable, as he eventually became addicted to morphine in secret. He was able to hide this affliction for quite some time, making it through his first residency and making it to the big times. He eventually started on 36-hour shifts in emergency rooms, and celebrating his victories in life, he made a horrible mistake. In the process of his self-congratulation, he heavily intoxicated himself. At the same time though, a boiler explosion had occurred at a fuel plant, and the wounded had been hospitalized to be put under his care. In his deluded state of mind, he was called into the hospital, where he incorrectly prescribed the explosion victims an excess dose of painkillers. This unfortunately led to the deaths of 11 of the 13 victims under his care. Clemens shortly after was arrested and sentenced to prison time for his neglectful actions, leading to manslaughter. Incarcerated for 7 years on Fiorina 161, a relatively short time if you ask me, he would live out these 7 years with the many other prisoners of the facility, and specifically a large assortment of double Y sufferers under the serial number F8878. Life was hard and horrible on Fury, and I suppose 7 years there may have been the equivalent to 25 in most other normal prisons. During his 7-year sentence, he was actually forced to overcome his morphine addiction, and once his 7-year serving was up, he actually chose to remain in the facility. A combination of a few factors like his attachment to his fellow prisoners, the fact that he knew he could never be employed again, and probably some remorse for his actions, led him to choose to remain on the hellish world. He was promoted to the Chief Medical Officer in the facility, and his medical license was reinstated to a Class 3C rating. When the prison facility eventually shut down in the year 2175, he again opted to remain and watch over his rough gang of companions that had also chosen to remain. During his time there, Clemens became something of an outsider, and he generally preferred his own company and to be left by himself. He really did seem to have suffered for his crimes emotionally. Beyond his official duties, he rarely interacted with either the inmates or the staff of the facility. Mostly, or whenever he could, he would venture out onto the surface of the harsh and empty world that was Fiorina 161. He would walk solemnly, thinking and trying to escape at times. And in August 2179, Clemens was on the surface of Fury 161 when he witnessed the falling star that was Ellen Ripley and the other survivors of Hadley's Hope, and their EEV crashed down on the surface of Fury 161. Clemens was able to save Ripley after finding her away from the wreckage and brought her back to the prison facility for treatment. Clemens took care of her and nursed her back to health, and once she regained consciousness, it was he, too, that had to inform her of the unfortunate news of her 2 companions that had died during the crash. Immediately, Ripley requested to see the bodies and the EEV wreckage. Whilst Clemens couldn't fathom why, he did his best to meet her requests. On their way, Clemens filled her in on how her 2 friends had died. The young girl Newt had drowned in her cryopod, and the male Hicks had been impaled by a support beam and killed. Even giving these answers, his patient was unsatisfied. Ripley pushed for an autopsy to be done on the girl's corpse. This had shaken him. He had already told Ripley of the cause of death, and now she wanted an autopsy? Nevertheless, Clemens performed the procedure and discovered that she had definitely, without a doubt, drowned. Ripley had spun a story that it was a potential case of cholera, which had been previously eradicated in the Middle Heavens region, causing Clemens to take haste with his work. However, due to the severity of his actions, he was quickly reprimanded by Superintendent Andrews. Andrews was angered that Clemens would perform such a task without his prior notification. Clemens, although not believing Ripley's story of cholera, told it to Andrews to make his actions seem more urgent and pressing. Shortly after, Clemens returned to Ripley and informed her that she had to best shave her head due to the lice infestation running rampant in the facility. Clemens also did his best to ward off other prisoners from her, as he knew the Double Y prisoners had a predisposition to sexual violence. Eventually, the two became very close indeed. They shared their histories, affection, and eventually the two would even sleep together. The following day, trouble would begin. Clemens was called to the scene of Brother Murphy's death. Andrews had written off the event as a simple accident, however, Clemens was not so sure. Distinctive burn marks had been left at the scene by the vent that had chopped Murphy to death after he tumbled into it. Two strange things had occurred since Ripley arrived, and so Clemens attempted to question Ripley to find out more. Ripley refused to divulge much, but Clemens was adamant that he would help her. Later, meeting again with Andrews in his office, he brought up the relationship between Clemens and Ripley, something Andrews was strongly against. An argument quickly broke out and led to Andrews ordering him to leave at once. Soon after, another incident had broken out. Prisoner Golic had been accused of murdering inmates Boggs and Rains. After returning covered in blood, he was restrained by Clemens, Andrews, Aaron, and Dylan, and taken forcibly to the infirmary. Golic had begun to relay the story of a great dragon that killed the men. Whilst the rest of the men saw him as a murderous lunatic, it was at this time that Ripley's secrets began to unveil themselves, as she was also confined to the infirmary by Andrews beside Golic. Clemens' suspicions were confirmed that she knew more than she was telling. Whilst isolated in the infirmary, Ripley got to see Clemens for the history that he had, as he explained the events that had led him to the facility, instigated when she noticed that he had a prisoner barcode tattoo like the other inmates. After she learned of his past, he asked her if she would still trust him with a needle. She responded by quickly rolling up her sleeve. This woman had survived more than simple incompetency. He gave her a relaxant, something Clemens had used his knowledge to create. Basically, it was a generated medicinal alcohol that he had reprogrammed. While strictly against the rules, he managed to hide his activity from both Andrews, Aaron, and the other prisoners. As he gave a little to Ripley, the demon arrived. Dropping down from the ventilation system, the Xenomorph creature had made its presence known. It grabbed Clemens and violently attacked him, giving him a head bite and simply tossing his lifeless body aside, to then only quickly retreat with his body into the vents for likely nefarious purposes. Before I go, I just wanted to let you guys know about the merch store called ACHERON's Colonial Marketplace. Here you can pick up a variety of ACHERON and alien themed merch from 3 distinct product lines, including shirts, hoodies, mugs, blankets, stickers, bags, and even phone cases. So if you want to support the channel and look good doing it, pick up some ACHERON merch. But what other videos would you guys like to see? If you have any ideas or have any questions you would like answered, please meet me down in the comments. If you did enjoy the video, please leave a like and go check out Project ACHERON on Twitter and Discord. If you want to support me further, you can become a patron where you can get access to early and behind the scenes content, the monthly and Alien Day giveaways, as well as the patron only engraved set of items.
I hope you guys did enjoy the video, and I'll talk to you guys on the next one. Until then, this is Project ACHERON, signing off.